Gal, that's a good question. I think, pursuing my own direction and, sometimes I'm a one man wolf pack. Other times I'm part of the pack. So
And it's the tiny details that make all the difference in the end. As you think about it, this journey, what made you transition into real estate in the late 2019, time?
and so I'm in the process right now of my life of shrinking certain things that I do that take a lot of time, really reevaluating.
Hello, and welcome back to the Masters of Real Estate. This is Nick Shah. If you are thinking about transacting in real estate, or you're just fascinated with the world of real estate transactions, you will love who we are going to learn from today. Today, we have Dan Cooper. Dan, how's it going, buddy?
Good, man. How are you, Nick? Thanks for having me.
Good, good. Yeah, seems like you're joining us from the West Coast as well.
Yeah. Up in Oregon, Bend, Oregon. I travel back and forth between Bend and Eugene, if you're familiar with that area.
Absolutely love Central Oregon. I think it's one of the most underrated, real estate in America. So I absolutely love Central Oregon. I've been to Madras a couple of years ago. Remember when the total solar eclipse was starting in Madras? I was there for a couple of days camping, and obviously I've been to Crater Lake National Park in Portland several times. So love Central Oregon.
Yeah, Central Oregon is, it's funny, back in 2010, when it was in the downturn, it was rated as the worst place to invest in real estate. And now it's probably top 3 or 4 in America, best place to invest. Probably some of that has to do with, the virtual world and the evolution of working from home. If you can work from anywhere, why wouldn't you work here in beautiful Central Oregon? So I think that's probably helped. But yeah, great place to invest, even better place to live.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. And don't believe those lists unless they come from me. Most people who publish real estate data and analytics don't really know what they're talking about. They're just publishing based on their hunch versus we obsess over this kind of data to make sure, we can be as accurate as possible. But, before we get into all that, people really want to know who you are, Dan. So how do you introduce yourself these days?
Oh man, well, I am originally from the Northwest, from Tacoma, Washington. And got into the business kind of by chance. I won't bore you with all the details, but I'm a builder, designer, and decided to get into the real estate segment of the business in the 2019 timeframe, and then immersed myself in tech over the last few years with an idea that I'd come up with about 12 years ago during the downturn. So. It's hard for me to pigeonhole myself and what I am and what I do because I do a lot of different things. I'm kind of a jack of all the trades, master of none. Here I am on Masters of Real Estate. But no, so I'm just kind of, I enjoy everything related to real estate, whether that's investing, developing, and now in the tech side that I'm really quickly getting to know. I don't know if that says much. I got 2 beautiful kids and a grandbaby now. So personally, that's takes my focus as family. But yeah, I spend a lot of time doing a lot of different real estate things.
Wow, I love that background. You're a builder, you're a designer, you're an investor, you're a developer. Now you're a prop tech entrepreneur, and you're a grandfather as well. Yeah. So that says a lot.
I'm still working on the perfect name. I don't like to be grandpa. So I want to come up with a really cool name. I just haven't come up with it. I'm open for some.
This is not an area of my expertise, but I'll definitely ask my dad what he wanted to be called when he became a grandson. But then if you had to think about your philosophy in life, your operating philosophy in life and your personality, what spirit animal or bird do you feel best describes you and your approach in life?
Doll, my life has been kind of evolved over time. I would say, are you kind of, I guess, what is the best answer here? Are you looking for what is my overall philosophy, my personal? Okay. I operate kind of under some principles in my personal life, and then also similar principles, but different in my professional life. So the thing that I operate in my personal life is to live with gratitude and authenticity. So many people, they regurgitate what they hear and they form their opinions based on others, and I've kind of always been the opposite of that. I've always formed my opinions. You can ask my friends. I mean, they're going to give me crap forever for using an Android phone. I mean, Jiminy Christmas. That is the biggest debate we have. But so I am who I am. But then on the business side, I think everyone talks about work-life balance, which unfortunately I haven't had a lot of. So I'm kind of like, I'm under the I guess I would say it's no strain, no gain, where if you want to get somewhere, there is sacrifice related to your life. And so I'm in the process right now of my life of shrinking certain things that I do that take a lot of time, really reevaluating how to best manage my time. But I would say, trying to make sacrifice in the right ways to grow. And then another piece that's really important to me that you'll probably hear me say multiple times a day is collaborative. I really value collaboration with people that, especially people that are way better than me. I think one of my biggest strengths is understanding my weaknesses and understanding that to get the most optimum result is you tap into the life experiences and talents of others. So I think I do that well. So collaboration is really big for me.
Wow. And then as you think about your, operating principles of gratitude or authenticity, being who you are, even if it's an Android user, and I completely forgive you for that decision, embracing pain to achieve gain, no strain, no gain, and being transparent and collaborative. What animal or bird do you feel best describes all of?
I'm sorry, what was that?
What animal or bird do you feel best describes all of these?
What is my spirit animal basically? Uh, m- I think that changes over time. Right now, I guess I could be a wolf. I'm hungry like a wolf. I want to continue to be successful and see some of my ventures all the way through. So, getting back to the Duran Duran song in the '80s, hungry like a wolf. Uh, Gal, that's a good question. I think pursuing my own direction, and sometimes I'm a one man wolf pack. Other times I'm part of the pack. So yeah, I'm going with wolf. How's that?
I love that. Love that. And as you think about, what you are today and put it in the context of the last like 25 or so years of your professional career, how would you package all of that up in a single metric? Like what metric do you feel describes your career so far?
It's funny, getting into prop tech, everything is about KPIs and all of your projections and metrics that will tell the story. And sometimes that doesn't tell the whole story. I could, in my building career, I've built over $200 million worth of homes, custom homes for others. I've designed almost $500 million. If you go through and you look at the entire group of designs that my companies have done. So that's great, right? But that's not how I measure myself. But metrics wise, sometimes it's really, really hard. People, if you listen to Grant Cardone and all those people that have really great following, they can tell you 100 different metrics that define them as a successful business person. And I just measure it differently. I also feel like success sometimes isn't in a straight line, right? Sometimes being successful means that you've reached a goal that maybe doesn't have a metric associated with it. So I kind of talked around your question, but I don't have a ton of metrics that would be impressive other than, hey, we've done a lot of great projects in my career. And had a lot of happy customers. And to me, that's
Couldn't agree more. I think measuring yourself by how many customers you made happy is also an incredible metric to live life by. But you have achieved a lot. You have designed over $500 million worth of homes. You have built 200 million of custom homes. Now let's go back into a stage in your life when all of this was zero, when Dan Cooper was just starting off. And what do you feel were the top 3 inflection points in your life that led you to having these amazing accomplishments?
That's a really great question, actually. I think about it often, when you sit and you think about your life's trajectory, the decisions that you made, maybe the decisions that you didn't make. Those are all points in your life that steer you to today, right? I would say that the first thing, if I was to look at my life in kind of like three major life, whether those are obstacles or successes, I always look at like times where you have to be resilient, right? How do you overcome something, and then how does that shape you? And I think the world is kind of like that right now. Is like, the people that have overcome things and used that to drive them forward are the most successful. So I would say, shoot, if you look at me pre-18, that's back when I kind of established a little bit of a chip on my shoulder because I was picked on when I was early in high school. And I would get passed over to be on the basketball team because I wasn't in the circle of people that, that just automatically got to be on the team. And all those things that as a kid shapes you the way that you think the rest of your life. And I think that's one thing that we're seeing with kids right now is uh, they have more challenges than you and I did, right? With of everything. So how that shaped me, I think a little bit of a chip on my shoulder. Then, getting into college, I was just starting to find myself when I was 21 and was surprised to know that I had a child on the way with an ex-girlfriend. And, that pivotal moment in my life where I was putting my through school. And then, now I have another responsibility that's more than myself. And how did that shape me and drive me into a totally different business? I actually went into sales where I could control my income, and I was hungry because I wanted to be successful and support my daughter. And now, back then at 21, you're like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? But now I've got, a beautiful daughter and a grandbaby from it. And so that was a huge inflection point personally. And then the third piece, which I'm guessing anybody that's listening to this, if they have been in the business longer than 15 years, they remember 2004, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, that 5-year. And I would say that's probably been the biggest period of my life, both personally and professionally, that kind of required some resolve. And when I talk to people that were in real estate in that period, made a lot of smart people look really dumb. And I think all of us that survived it, we're better for it. We're a little more conservative. It's funny, back in that time, I was having people give me advice that had been through, the prior economic downturns in real estate. And they're like, oh, you guys think you know everything. And at the time I did. I knew everything. And it definitely threw me for a loop. But getting through that period, I think that was the biggest life lesson that has helped me all the way through today. And really required a lot of sacrifice and sleepless nights to get through. But we saw it on the other side. So those of you that have been through that, you can relate. That shaped many people.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. Wow, what a fascinating insight into your journey from having a chip on your shoulder to, being burdened with a family when you had just graduated to, going through the roller coaster of mid 2000s. As you think about, you're back to your college days, what was it like going to two different Pac-12 colleges that had extremely competitive sports programs that knew each other?
Gal, that's a great question. So I like to consider myself the token Husky in the city of Eugene. Most people are really, really good about it. There was a time that it wasn't fun as far as football because Oregon was dominating us. But hey, as I was in high school, we were also really good, and so ebbs and flows. But it's been good. I've had the honor to do some projects for some really great coaches for the University of Oregon. I've worked on some really awesome theme rooms that were Oregon related, and I like to show my versatility. But make no mistake, I mean, I'm a Husky through and through, and so even as a kid, I definitely got left out on some of the tailgaters and activities surrounding Oregon athletics. But no, that's a good. I went to University of Oregon and University of Washington, totally two different schools, both great in their own right. But yeah, it's been interesting. Now that I'm over in Bend, I meet more Huskies, but all my friends, Eugene, they definitely
No,
do.
lose. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I think University of Oregon also has its identity tied with the entire state of Oregon as well. Like almost everyone there is a Dow at Magic. As you think about, when you graduated, you were 21, you just had a baby. What was a fire inside you that led you to being entering sales in the telecommunications industry and also becoming good at it? Or was the roughly, 8 years ish that you weren't doing that?
It's funny, I at the time I was actually in retail, just like most college kids. I was working full time and working for a company called Nautica, if you've ever bought their clothes. But I was making a lot of money, and it wasn't what I was going to do with my life. And so when I got the news that I was going to be a dad, I thought, okay, well, I need to make money. And I was going to take anything where I could actually control my own income. And so back in the day, before the Indeeds of the world, you're looking in the paper, right? That's very old, but you're looking in the paper, and I started sending my resume everywhere. And I was into places because I knew that like I didn't have the money to support, a child. And so anyway, I ended up finding this telecom role, and that was back when pagers were the thing, right? Cell phones were still attached to bags, and so that got me into telecom. And that's the cool thing about being in tech now is there's a little bit of a correlation between what I did there right after college and what I'm doing now. It's kind of the merge of my real estate and my tech background, but really at that point it was just I had to make money, and I was making cold calls every single day while the reps next to me were like, oh, geez, they had their big lists of customers. And I was the new guy. I was like, dude, I'm going to make money. And so that got me into tech. And I've never been a really techie guy, but I do love sales and people. So yeah, but it got me. It took care of my family, and it was kind of the start of my story.
Wow, what a story. And, then as you think back and reflect on your career in sales, and, sales is also part of what you're doing now. What do you feel differentiates a good salesperson from an exceptional salesperson?
It's funny. I talk about this with my real estate agents at times when we're talking about what can they do to grow their business. I think I have a distinct opinion based on what is the difference between being outside sales and what is being a rep, right? They're both great. But if you really are a great salesperson, you will do all the little things to be successful. You are okay picking up the phone and cold calling someone and having them hang up on you. You're okay walking in the door, knocking on the door of a neighbor saying, hey, I'm such and such, and I'd love to work with you if you ever want to sell your home. Those are the things that I think set the good, like real estate agents or salespeople, from the great. Ambition, drive, and the ability to just like go get it. And so that's really, I think, anytime I'm talking to new salespeople, I always ask them, hey, are you cut out to be great? And you're gonna have to do the little things. Are you okay doing that? And the ones I've seen really successful, they're the out of the box, ambitious people willing to do whatever it takes. And so that's what I would say is probably the difference.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. While a lot of salespeople have the drive, not everybody has the ambition to be as big as they think they can be, or that they haven't even thought they could get it. But most aren't detail oriented, like you mentioned, and it's the tiny details that make all the difference in the end. As you think about it, this journey, what made you transition into real estate in the late 2019, time frame?
Well, I spent a lot of time doing interior design, and that got me into 2003, where everybody was doing spec homes. I don't know if you were doing business fact.
And then for a listener who has never understood spec homes, can you explain what they are and what the risks are of executing and successfully delivering a spec home project?
Yeah, for sure. Spec homes are when you are designing and building a home with not one person in mind, something to be sold. And so, you're buying the lot, you're designing the home, you're building it, and then you hope that you can make a really good profit, right? Back in 2003, 2004, I was meeting firemen, a goat farmer. We're talking everybody, teachers, they were doing spec homes because what was happening in the market is you would break ground and then that house would appreciate 30, 40, 50,000 within that next year. And that was all margins. So people were flipping their homes every 2 years. They were literally just continuing to trade up. They were doing spec homes on the side. It was a really great time to make money, but then it became a really time to learn valuable life lesson. And the us that were in that really lived it. And so, yeah, I would say that that period of time got me into building because it was the next step. I knew interior design. I was working with people on that. I thought, I'm going to just try to start building spec homes. And eventually, luckily for me, and why we survived the downturn is in late 06, I started sensing something was weird. And so I went all, forward in like doing custom homes only. I just like, I'm gonna start serving people, but then I have guaranteed contracts, and so that ship allowed us to survive barely through that downturn, and we weren't sitting on inventory, so that was helpful. A lot of other people didn't do that, and lost a lot more than we did. But yeah, that was what got me in, is just being in interior design, and then making the foray into building.
And custom homes have a lower risk because you have a buyer already identified, and they're mostly there is some sort of a deposit there that obligates them to go through a transaction or provides downside in case they don't go through the transaction, versus a spec makes part.
I would say and I was kind of in a unique position where having an interiors background, I could actually really provide an added value to those people that wanted to go through the process of a custom home, and in return, I got financial security. I wasn't chasing a margin, so I had a fixed margin at that point, but that was way better than the alternative back then, where we were seeing a lot of values go backwards, and consequently, that's where Gitcha was hatched. And I'll tell you a little bit about that a little later.
Yeah. So as you think about your journey in real estate, at what point did it go from you're doing a project to you're doing a bunch of projects to you have a company to now you have a holding company called DC Companies with a whole bunch of companies? What was the aha moment of scale like?
I think anybody that is an entrepreneur has a lot of pursuits, right? They're always having the latest idea. DC Companies was real hatched, and we've been growing DC Companies because we wanted to diversify our offerings to survive, economic downturns and also local community restrictions. I mean, not to get into the weeds on Eugene, Oregon, but it's not a pro builder. It's not friendly. And so what we started seeing is we were losing a lot of opportunities to just people going and buying homes rather than designing and building. And so the design and the build eventually evolved into brokerage, so we could still take care of those people if they decided that they found something that maybe they wanted to buy. So it was really kind of more of a survival type of thing. Obviously, we also have a land development and investment company, and that's just also to support all the other businesses. So it's just kind of all of the companies support each other, and that was really the intent of why we grew to the different aspects in real estate.
Fascinating, Dan. And as you think about, from where you started to where DC Companies is now, what do you feel was the aha moment of scale that unlocked a lot of growth?
I think part of it was realizing, you have to project as a business owner, you have to project what is the next 5 years going to be. And I think when we realized we needed to diversify and for survival, that was when we unlocked new opportunity. And people, especially in Eugene, when you get into these small to medium-sized communities, people are accustomed to staying and doing the same thing for a very long time. And I always wanted to pursue what was the next step in growth or innovation. And part of it is adaptability and trying to stay ahead of constraints, whether that's economic or other factors. But part of it is also I love building businesses and collaborating with new people, and opening the brokerage piece of our companies really gave me a new outlet. So that was part of it too. I would say just that overall kind of 360 services to the clientele is really what has allowed us to continue to grow.
That's such an incredible insight. So Dan, I'm also at the stage in a career where business is growing well. It has some offshoot products that are doing independently, and I'm planning to spin them off into their own companies. As somebody who has run holding company with independent companies, all of which cross sell and benefit from each other, what do you think are the mistakes I should avoid as I think about growing home LLC into the same version of a holding company with multiple independent?
I see a lot of different mistakes made, including mistakes I've made, right? That's how I've evolved and grown is messing up. I would say the things that I see people making mistakes on, for one, is people, they stay in a job or in a career too long, and then they decide they have to do something and they make a leap to something else, and there's no soft handoff. And so what I've always said is the best time to open a new business is while you still have a job or another business going that is paying bills, because then you don't make decisions based out of desperation, right? Although it's worked. I mean, it's worked for guys like, Airbnb, the owner of Airbnb, the guy who started that and all. I mean, there are success stories, but I think if you don't want to starve and you don't want to make decisions that are steered based on desperation, I think that's the key, is to make sure you're creating something while you have something else to support you. And I see some people that just make the leap and they're like, oh, I just can't wait to do this. And then they don't have income. And I think it's really, I think that's an important distinction. The other thing that I would say is you don't have to know everything about the business you're getting into, but you better have a really great set of mentors or people that you trust that you will get feedback from. I see a lot of people make emotional business decisions. I mean, hey, we all love the idea of opening a speakeasy, right, where we can go drink whiskey with our friends. But is that a business you've done before? And have you done a market analysis to see if it's going to be successful? Those are the things that I see people really, missing on, where they totally take a step in a different direction that they don't have any context to do, and that's really where people get in trouble.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And seems like from all of this and your love for technology came Glitcha. So what was the founding story with Glitcha?
Well, Gitcha, first of all, I went through 100 names, by the way, trying to find a name that worked, and it kind of speaks to what the product is. But really, it was actually during that downturn that I had mentioned, 2008-9 to 2013. And my wife and I was a builder, and we had a beautiful home, a $900,000 home in Eugene. And that $900,000 home quickly became worth $600,000. And that was during a really, really cool time, because the construction activity had slowed to basically a very small trickle. And then we're trying to pay bills while we're trying to pull equity out of our home. And so we decided, all right, let's get back to basics. Let's sell our home, pull our equity out. Well, 3 years later, the home was still on the market, and it continued to drop our price and drop our price and drop our price. And I realized that the history on MLS and what you were seeing was ugly. And we had well over 100 showings in that time, and no one was buying our home, and it became more and more tainted. And I was sitting there, and we were contemplating taking it off the market. And I was like, I wish I could just go and peruse buyers. I wish I could take our home off the market, and, get back to kind of a little bit of privacy, and then just wait for seeing that someone wants our type of home. It was a unique home. It was in the hills. It had a view. It was a unique architecture, but it wasn't for everybody. And so I was like, that doesn't exist. There is now one you can actually top buyers. And that's where Gitcha was born. It was born from a seller's mentality. Our product now is buyer driven, but it was really done with that spirit of wishing that I could actually sift through buyers. So that's where Gitcha was started. It's obviously become more than that, but that's the premise.
I absolutely love that story. Yeah, so it seems like you created a company that basically solved your own problem when you were facing a massive issue in trying to sell your home through a downturn, and that turned into a problem that others wanted to solve as well. So how did your vision for Gitcha change from initially focusing on sellers, helping sellers sell homes as quickly and easily as possible, to pivoting to or focusing more heavily on buyers and helping them buy a home as efficiently?
So I hatched Gitcha, and I had no money to see Gitcha through. So all I did was write business plans for years, and me and a friend came up with a lot of designs, and then in 2014 the paint business got back to a feverish pitch, and so I shelved it and I threw it on mothballs. And then in about 2019, as I was contemplating opening up my brokerage, I started thinking about it again. Like, I really wish I could do something with that. And I think if you've ever had an idea that you never executed, you kind of live with a little regret. And I was like, I don't regret that I didn't try this. And so when I went into the brokerage, immediately within the first 3 months of our brokerage and getting to talk to real estate agents in a different manner, collaborating with them, I started seeing the validation and affirmation everywhere. And I thought, okay, we are going to make the leap. And so as we did, we really continued to kind of hone in on, is there a product out there that's like Gitcha? And what is the real need? Is it seller driven or is it a buyer driven need? And what we realized in talking to real estate agents and then starting focus panels, that this was a needed product to support buyers and buyer agency. And so as we started developing it in 2021, then obviously the class action lawsuits, and now we are where we are today, where buyer agency has been in question, marginalized a little bit. And so everything that we've been innovating has been around supporting buyer agents and their customers. So that's really, there's still great benefits for sellers, don't get me wrong, but I think we just kind of went where we felt we were needed. And so that's really where we're at today, is continuing to innovate for the benefit of that segment of user.
So for a home buyer listening to this right now, or buyer's rep listening to this right now, how do you explain what pain points Gitcha helps them solve?
Well, first of all, there is not one platform out there that really helps them understand their buyer. And what I mean by that is, when you're just a search and send agent where you sign up your customers that are looking to buy something on MLS automated alerts, they are only as good as what MLS is providing. What other service are you providing? Are you going out there and are you farming for opportunities? Are you widening your sphere? Are you amplifying what they need and want to find something that maybe is an upcoming listing, something that maybe was withdrawn and wants to go back on? Communicating with your fellow agents on what they know about. That is really like our tagline right now is find the house, get the deal. And as a agent, now more than ever before, what is one thing you can do to really be continuing a business built on effectiveness? And that is representing your client differently. And so that's how we've kind of built the business, is we really want to support buyer agents in a different way that results in a different result, where you found that perfect house. One thing I find really interesting is I made a living as a designer builder off of people not finding what they wanted. And so then they went and they came to us and they said, hey, we can't find what we're looking for. Will you design it and build it? And so I take that with me and understand that I've got a lot of experience hearing what people aren't finding. So how can we help people on the real estate side find what they're looking for and support buyers agents? So obviously there's lots of other innovations we're coming up with around all of the recent the settlement and the ongoing changes in our industry. But really, at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is we're trying to help buyers agents find a better opportunity or more opportunities for their customers.
Mm. And as you know, buyers come in different segments or personas. There is the first time buyer who's looking for just the best priced home that barely fits their needs. There's the repeat home buyer who's looking for a larger home. And then there is a luxury home buyer that's looking for their dream home. And there are other types of buyers too. What buyer personas do you feel use Gitcha most often?
Well, I actually think we're good for everybody. I mean, yeah, absolutely. If you've got money to spend and you're willing to wait for that perfect thing, yeah, Gitcha's great. You can be exactly what you want. But think of it this way. When we talk about fair housing and we talk about clear cooperation, we talk about all those things. Are we really serving the first-time home buyer very well? If you require a home and the whole thing is you say, hey, you want to get a product out there that everyone can buy in a really highly competitive price segment, you've got first-time home buyers because of the requirement of posting it on MLS. You now have them competing with a pool of investors that are paying cash, and these people are trying to buy their first home with an FHA. At what point do we need to set people up with the right circumstance that doesn't always boil down to the almighty dollar, right? For example, we had a user on Gitcha that it was someone that was trying to buy their first home. And we had a seller that was being represented that her motivation, it was a widow, her motivation was not the almighty dollar. She wanted someone to take over the home that her husband built and that she had lived in for 40 years, and she wanted a young family to buy it. So now we've got this segment of people that the net isn't their first primary objective. It's to actually understand who their buyer is. And so that's the thing that we allow, the love letters that have become under scrutiny and they ruled that you can't do it. Now it's under appeal. We allow people to tell their story on Gitcha. They can go into the description and say, hey, we're a young family. We need a fenced yard. We go to, Willamette High School. We need to be in that school district. They get to actually have a place to say what they're needing. And there just isn't anything for that. So I would say that we're trying to serve everybody in a different way. Doesn't mean that there is a segment of user that isn't great for Gitcha, but we like to think that we're trying to be all things to all user types, including investors. So if you like to put a sign on the street corner that says "We'll buy your house," throw it on Gitcha, right? So I think there's a user profile that we accommodate pretty much from start.
Wow, fascinating. Seems like you have quite a ambitious vision for Gitcha, and seems like you're already making tremendous progress towards getting there. What do you feel separates Gitcha from 99% of the rest of the market?
Well, I mean, for one, I think our timing is really good because we didn't evolve because of, or we didn't come up in the business because of the lawsuits. We just happened to be creating a product that was a really great answer, or at least a great complement to what agents are facing. So I would say we're just doing things super differently. But there's lots of challenges with that too. You mentioned ambitious. This is a highly ambitious endeavor, because we're trying to get people to think with the opposite side of their brain. The marketplace has always been driven by the person that owns the product. I've always felt in real estate, buyers have always existed to serve the seller. That's the way we've built the ecosystem in real estate. You are, if you're a buyer and you go on Zillow and you fill out, hey, I'm a buyer. What are you? You're a lead now, right? Everything related to serving the seller. And so we thought, let's do it the exact opposite way that we've been conditioned to do it. And so, yeah, it's an ambitious enterprise. And we know the challenges of getting people to think differently. And that's what our biggest struggle is right now, to be frank with you, is to get people to see that there can be another way to do this, and are they willing to consider it? That is our biggest uphill battle.
See, makes sense. And for someone listening to this and absolutely loves this, how should they start working with you and your team?
Thank you. You know, it depends on who they are. So right now we're developing our 2.0 product, our second generation, and that is built for enterprise. So that's built for brokerages. All the features are taken from a year's worth of feedback to serve our brokerage product, which we really didn't develop at the beginning intentionally, because we wanted to hear what they actually need. So if they're an individual user, they have to be in one of our markets we've launched, which is not very many. But once our brokerage product goes out, it's gonna expand rapidly, because we're gonna start setting up brokerages. So now go to Gitcha.com. You can join as a consumer if you're not a real estate agent. We do allow consumers on our platform, and that's a great way for real estate agents to meet potential customers organically, where we have some safeguards in place for those consumers. And then, if you're a brokerage, talk to us about our brokerage product. And then our 2.5, which we're in the process of designing right now, is our MLS product, where we're going to be partnering with MLSs so they can white label our product and serve a really wide group of real estate agents in their membership. So yeah, it just depends on what kind of user they are.
So if they're a broker that wants to work with the version 2 product, how should they reach out to you or the Gitcha team to get started?
They can, first of all, they can email any one of us. You can find us on LinkedIn, Dan@Gitcha.com, Jake@Gitcha.com. Like those, we're fine talking to the individual user and talking to the brokerage owner. You can always just email info@Gitcha.com. But for us, we're a startup, so we talk to everybody, because you never know who that person is and where that will lead. Right now, we love talking to people and finding out how we can help their business.
Absolutely love that. Now, for someone listening to this that says, "Wow, this sounds too good," like, is there any catch? Like, are there any risks of working with Gitcha?
Well, sure. I think we all know that startups, what is the statistic? Like 97% or something of startups fail. So you could integrate Gitcha into your business and kill it with Gitcha and be one of our raving fans, and then we don't end up being successful. That is your risk, but that's also the risk of every product that is new, right? So, we are a power. The power of our product is in the network. And so our objective is to grow the network of people using it. It is too good to be true, because it actually would work if we can hit our product market fit and have, which every startup founder says, product market fit. But if we can actually have people join the party, then this is a network that doesn't exist anywhere else. And so that's where we're at now, as we're looking to grow through MLSs and enterprise. We have a lot of users. We've got 400 users right now, and we have new listings every day. But we also know that our work is just
Great. And obviously, it sounds like you're providing an incredible service, right? And you're putting a lot of time and energy into it. How do you monetize Gitcha?
Well, so we're subscription based, like every other product, especially in real estate, right? We try to be as value centric as we can. It's $12 a month paid annually for the upgraded agent experience. But really, where we're going to make our money is the back end data. If you think about it, if you're an investor, if you're a builder, if you're an institutional investor, think about real time buyer data. We're not talking data of, hey, this is what's sold. We're talking about this is what people aren't finding that want this right now. We have 67% of all people posting on Gitcha is looking for a single level home. Average price of X. These are people, a segment of the industry that is not being fulfilled. So if we take that data and we put it to use in really solid ways, we can advise future builds and investment to cater to the people that are not being catered to. And I think that's a huge thing for Gitcha. There's other things. We've got ancillary referral networks. We've got leads, we got all the other things, but really the power is going to be a data set that nobody else has.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. And somebody who voraciously consumes real estate data and is obsessed with real estate economics, I'd love to be in that conversation as well.
Yeah.
Now, for someone listening to this, they're like, Dan seems like the perfect, CEO, and it just seems like the perfect company to work for. They want to start working there. What should they expect uh, as a culture when they join Gitcha?
I'm one of the very few people, at least it seems on LinkedIn, that believes in being in person to get the best result. Because I love collaboration, working with colleagues. Unfortunately, right now, because we're small, we're watching every ounce of our expenses. So we're all virtual. You mentioned earlier, about metrics, right? And I have people, when they're joining us, they want metrics. What are the metrics of success? And, to me right now, I think there's a quote, and I'm trying to remember who said it, but it's something to the effect of, success consists of going from failure to failure to failure without the loss of enthusiasm, I think is how it goes. So right now, success to us is ending the day feeling like you just did everything you could to push this company forward. Maybe you had a great idea. Maybe we created a marketing plan that is going to take us to the next step. So people coming to us, they need to know that right now we don't have a huge metric because we're still in the fact-finding mode. We're actually seeking feedback and then executing that feedback in our product. So to me, success eventually will be measured in data and whatnot. But for now, anyone that's joining us needs to know that we're just a bunch of people that are trying hard and trying to be innovative and trying to be good listeners and curious. And as we are, you need to pitch in because we're a collaborative unit. We're bootstrapping this thing, and my advice to anyone looking to work with us is you got to be part of the direction because we're going to give you that opportunity.
Yeah, love that. And you mentioned you went through a bunch of names before finalizing Gitcha. So what's the story behind naming your company Gitcha?
Well, I wanted it to be .com, and I wanted to be 6 digits or less. And I also wanted it to encompass what it actually was. And that was at a time too where like slang was fine. I was like, yeah, get yourself something, And so when I was going through and I had a list of 100 and like 96 of them were taken, and I got down to the final 4, and then I made inquiries on the available ones, and people were wanting $10,000-$20,000, and I found Gitcha for like 250, and I was like, all right, it's Gitcha. So since then it's become an acronym, which is going to be I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it would tell you our future direction. But it's become a kind of a life of its own, and people really remember it. It was actually a really it was a good name that I landed on.
Yeah, indeed. Let's talk about the future. So as you think about your 2025 goals, what do you feel are the biggest bottlenecks that are coming in your way for scaling your team or operations to meet your 2025 goal?
Our goals, we have large goals. One thing we haven't done is gone to any kind of funding because we wanted to build and design Gitcha without any of that distraction. And we also, if we're going to go to investors, we want to be confident of our product offering. We can say, hey, this, not only are these projections, but this is what we've seen. We've taken feedback. We've executed the feedback. We've found the holes in the market that we believe we're serving. And as soon as we put that in a really nice offering, then we feel really good about going out to investment. So in 2025, we'll seek investment when our 2.0 product is fully hatched. And then at that point, they'll see that, hey, I've put my money where my mouth is, right? Where we have put the time, we've put the resources into developing Gitcha to the product it is, and we believe in it. I think that if I'm investing in something and there's a founder that does the same thing, that's highly compelling because they're believing in themselves and they're believing in the product. So I'm going to believe in the product that much more. So in 2025, that is going to allow us to scale. As we're only in a handful of markets right now, we're in Arizona and Oregon. But as we team up with brokerages and MLSs, that'll rapidly expand. So that's one of our goals, is to really kind of follow where there's opportunity and, working with MLSs. So yeah, we're pretty bullish on 2025. We have a lot of plans, but I won't bore you with all of the specifics. It's just, I think growth, it's all about the growth and continue to listen to our customers.
Indeed. Indeed. As you think about the future of the real estate transaction industry, Dan, what is your ultimate future for how real estate transactions would flow?
I think you've probably seen, Nick, portals in any other company that is, really trying to innovate in the real estate space, which there's a lot. The big ones, the big players like Zillow and whatnot, they want to control more aspects of the transaction. And I just don't see it. If anyone can make it successful, it would be the 1,000-pound gorilla like Zillow. Integrating home loans and whatnot, I think that makes sense. Serving customers with that all-in-one experience, but coming from a guy that owns different segments in the real estate business, different companies in real estate, there are too many parts of a transaction that you can't automate and that you can't control, that require other companies to serve the customer. So I don't think that's where the industry is going. I do believe that where the industry is going is we're going to see a more professional real estate agent. I think we're going to see innovations that are sensible, that really focus on making the agent more efficient and more effective. There's a lot of products out there. So I think eventually it's going to be a handful of kind of new order of real estate products and innovative products. And then the rest are not going to be able to make it. Hopefully we're a part of the ones that do. But I think real estate is just going to get to be a better service, and the customers are going to be more at the forefront than ever before. Those are the products that are going to make it, are the ones making the experience better for the end user.
Couldn't agree more. It's all about the end user and obsessing about the customer in the end. I'd love to ask you some rapid fire questions, Dan.
Rapid fire, shoot away. Hopefully I can handle it.
What do you feel you know about the real estate industry that might surprise most listeners?
That's a loaded question. That's a deep answer that has a lot of tentacles. I don't know. Do I take the affordability crisis on? I mean, in a nutshell, maybe I talk about that for a second. In a nutshell, we have so much regulation as a developer and builder. We have so much regulation and red tape that is impacting the building of new units. I think so many people just say, hey, let's just build more houses. Well, it's not that easy. Let me give Eugene. I want to just highlight Eugene, my good old town of Eugene, and show you the microcosm of how backwards we do things. So Eugene did not and has not expanded their urban growth in 40 years. You're supposed to have a 20-year build. What that has done is artificially decreased the amount of buildable inventory and land. And they continue to fudge the numbers to say, oh no, we conform. Meanwhile, they've empowered neighborhood organizations to weigh in on any infill development. So what has happened is now the additional cost. So they have this affordable housing crisis. So you know what their answer was? Their answer was, what we're going to do is we're going to add a tariff on every building permit. And so if you have the opportunity to build a home, what we're going to do is we're going to add a 1% excise tax onto the cost of that. And then we're going to get it to an affordable housing program. Tax the rich, give to the poor. What you're doing is you're continuing to increase a product that already has huge increases in land cost because there's not any. Tons of new codes that are saddling these builders with more expensive to build. And then a workforce that is needing to be paid more. So all of this to be said, state of Oregon says, you know what we're going to do? We're going to release a new policy called middle housing, where now every single piece of dirt in the state of Oregon is multifamily. We're going to basically ban single family homes. You can put a fourplex on that residential lot if you want. So we've taken the pendulum and we've tried to correct all of the misguided policies by totally, swinging it the other direction. And now there's chaos. So in my opinion, our problem today with affordability is it's years of policies being made that didn't steer us in the right direction. And now we're trying to figure out how to do it. And I can tell you from a developers don't want to take on unnecessary risk. So we now have this quandary, who's going to build them? And that's really the problem right now that we're seeing. There's lots of other layers, but that's really, I think, the biggest thing in real estate right now that's scary to me is getting people affordable units. And how do we do that?
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. If I had to summarize it for the listener, it is you want affordable houses. Developers want to give you affordable houses. And everything between these two is completely screwed up by the local, city, and state government. They won't give the developer the land to build homes. When they give the land, they'll go put them through several months, if not several years of scrutiny and hell to even give them that piece of land. And then when they do, they'll charge all sorts of extra taxes and fees that will make a land much more expensive to build on. And, they themselves can rezone upzone land very quickly. They have the solution to the problem. They just won't do it. But they'll create more problems. And yeah, eventually they'll say, oh, we created this budget for affordable housing. And my wife's an affordable housing developer in the city of San Francisco, which is the heart of the affordable housing crisis in the country. And it takes 2 to 7 times longer to build affordable housing than to build market rate housing. And the cost of building affordable housing is exponentially increased by the mandatory use of union labor, which costs nearly 2 times as much as regular labor, and a whole host of other issues they throw in, like environmental and planning and all of those. Now, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't have regulation around home building. But the truth is that home building, or even building any sort of unit, is so highly regulated and so highly delayed that people who want to take business risks in giving you the product you want are not able to do it. And the government is then going around and saying, okay, you'll just have to pay more to do the same things you could have done much more easier and cheaper and faster. And it's a highly, highly, highly inefficient world we're living in. Couldn't agree more. Then second rapid fire question. Let's say family office calls you and says they have $100 million liquidity that they only want to invest in real estate as an asset class. How would you advise them? And what would you tell them?
I'd love to. First of all, let me just say, I'd love for someone to give me $100 million. I would figure out a great way to spend it. I'd put it all on Gail Williams. I would spend it like I'm a conservative investor. Probably because of what I went through in 2009 to 2000. I would invest it in multifamily with passive income. That would be my first investment. I'd continue to double down on multifamily, considering our population growth and our need for units. So those cap rates are only going to get better. Of course, there are other things that are weighing, like you want to consider where are you going to do that. Obviously, Oregon is a tough landlord state, so maybe it wouldn't be in Oregon. But that would be the first thing I would invest in heavily, and anything related to really great land. That's where my experience is buying dirt and doing well on it. But the other thing that I would say I would do would be I'd invest, if I had that kind of capital, I'd invest in automation, building automation. We don't have an influx incoming of blue collar people wanting to do physical labor. We just don't. And so we have to understand how we can build homes with a reduced workforce. And that is the future. 3D printing, robotics, all of those things. If I had a large amount of money, I would invest in that future.
Completely agree. You've built a lot of homes. You've designed a lot of. Completely agree. So Dan, you've built a lot of homes. You've designed a lot of homes. For somebody looking to build or design a custom home, as you go through all your breadth of experience, what are the top 2 or 3 mistakes they should avoid making?
In the custom design and build arena,
Mm-hmm.
I would say there's a lot of mistakes being made. The first thing is you should always have a builder and a designer lined up from the very beginning. Your team trust will make sure that the dream happens, right? Teamwork makes the dream work. But more than that, you need an advisor on cost from the very beginning. And so if you're designing a home and you've designed the Taj Mahal and you have a very low budget, you need someone to check you all the way through the design process. So many times I see people design their dream home and then me as the builder has to be the Grim Reaper and tell them why we can't do it for their budget. So I think that's the key thing if you're doing a custom home, really involving a builder and a designer early on. I would say that's the biggest issue. The second piece is be choosy when it comes to your financing institution and what their process is related to getting your funds as you build the house. I've seen so many banks really hurt people who are trying to enjoy what can be a very fun process. No offense to banks, but they don't really understand construction very well. They just want to make that really great interest money and loan fees. It's more complicated than that. So making sure that you interview banks, understand the positive and negatives of their program will go a long way of your enjoyment. So those two key decisions that happen at the very beginning will allow for a way better experience building, and you will likely avoid all of the terrible horror stories that you hear.
Yeah, I completely agree with those. I have a couple of really small ones, which are my personal recommendations. I don't think they apply to everyone. One is, if you can avoid a front yard, avoid it. It's going to be the most unused piece of, part of your real estate. The second is, the most important parts of where you live should ideally be south facing. Because we live in the northern hemisphere, the south side is where we get the most sun. And, the most important parts of where you're going to spend your daytime activities should ideally be south facing activities. So you get maximum sunlight, natural sunlight throughout the day as well. Last question, yeah. You are a father. Go ahead, Dan.
Oh, no, I was going to just completely agree with you. So many people don't design with that in mind. It's definitely a designer's job to steer their clients in that direction, for sure.
Yeah, it's very hard to move a home. Oh, once it's designed, all the people have. So last question, Daniel. Here, your now grandfather. Would loved one agree? Last question, Dan. Your father, now your grandfather. If your loved ones agree to be mentored by you, what's the number one skill you would teach them?
The value of, I've said this before, but the value of everybody's ideas and collaborating. So much of what we do as professionals, we have to be confident in what we know, but we should also be confident in what we don't know and what you can do to really tap into others. And so I think so many people are really, especially in our world now, it's all about you. It's all about, hey, it's all about me. Well, it shouldn't be all about. If you want to optimize the results, you will tap into everybody that you trust and that has a different perspective than you. So I would say that's probably the single most important thing if I was to instill in someone is the value of others and the value of listening and being curious and understanding others' perspectives.
Completely agree. Listen, be curious, and genuinely understand others' perspective. That's the only way you will succeed. That was Dan Cooper, the founder and CEO of Gitcha, as well as the CEO and president of DC Companies, his holding company, which is a whole bunch of companies. He's a wolf. Some days he hunts by himself, some days he hunts with a pack. He lives with gratitude and authenticity. He believes in I am who I am, and that goes through his use of Android as his operating system. His belief in life is no strain, no gain, or believes in collaboration and transparency to achieve things together. If you're a real estate agent or brokerage looking to help your buyers find their dream home, ping Dan and his team on Gitcha.com. Or you can also email Dan or email Jake from Gitcha. We'll add their link in the bio. And, you can also reach out to info@gitcha.com and they will read every single email you send. This is Nick Shah. If you ever want to talk about real estate, shoot me a note on CEO@Home LLC. Thanks, everyone.